A somber day in Henderson County as the community and law enforcement remember Detective Ryan Hendrix, shot and killed in the line of duty on September 10th. His funeral just wrapped up there at Mud Creek Church, and now the procession is beginning. Those are his fellow brothers and sisters in blue pulling out there. Those are Henderson County deputies making their way to Forest Lawn Cemetery. And you can see several more unmarked cars and marked deputies' cars still pulling out. Likely everyone on the force there in that procession. They've called in extra patrols from neighboring counties to help cover the county during this, so those men and women can pay their final respects and escort their friend and colleague to his final resting spot. You can see there's a lot of deputies still in that parking lot. It is a sad reminder of what has happened in this country so far this year. 200 law enforcement officers have lost their life. And you never want to see one of your own added to that list. But unfortunately, last week, September 10th, the sheriff there had to add one of his to the list. If you have not been following this story, Deputy Hendrix was responding to a vehicle break-in when the suspect shot him. He was rushed to the hospital, but unfortunately did not survive. And here is the motorcade escorting that fallen deputy. We do know the procession will be heading from Mud Creek Church down Rutledge Drive to Highway 25. And you can see the community out there holding American flags. Many who might have never met him, but they wanted to pay their respects this afternoon. You can see cars have stopped on the roadway there as the procession makes its way down Rutledge Drive to Highway 25. From there, it will travel to Main Street in Hendersonville and then onto Barnwell Street. You can see the SWAT team truck right there. Detective Hendrix was a member of the Henderson County SWAT team. Many times, those are the men and women who first arrived there to go into an unknown situation before their other brothers and sisters. Many of them worked very closely and put their lives on the line many days and many nights. And you can see the procession making its way down Rutledge Drive here from Mud Creek Church. And just to read some of the comments during the funeral, Don Hendrix, that's Ryan's father, said, quote, "Like St. Paul, you two have fought a good fight. You have finished your course. You have kept your faith, and you have earned your crown." He said, "It has been my pleasure, and now it is my honor to be your dad." And I'll take a moment of silence here as you see his casket draped in the American flag there. And as we watched that casket go down the road, the sheriff saying, when it came to the fight, Ryan wanted to fight the biggest guy. When it was time to run, he wanted to run after the fastest guy. There's no other way to describe him other than, quote, a rock star. He went on to say, "I don't know who looked at Ryan and said, this is a good idea. I'm going to run from him." The sheriff said of Hendrix' many foot chases, there was only one thing that could happen. Someone was definitely going to jail. He went on to say, whatever Ryan did, he put his heart into it. The sheriff said, whatever he did, you knew it was going to be completed when he got done. During that funeral, the sheriff, as you can imagine, choked up as he read, "Godspeed, Deputy Ryan Hendrix, your work here is done. And with the help of everyone here today, we will hold the line until we meet again." And I will tell you, for those men and women, this is the toughest day they have had to go through. To know many of them were out there. They saw their brother on the ground. Many of them went to the hospital to be with him. Unfortunately, he could not pull through the injuries he faced when he was shot. Even making the story even more heartbreaking, he leaves behind 2 young children and a fiance. Just heartbreaking when you read about his family. He was so close to so many. But we do know he leaves behind his son and his daughter. His son Merritt, his daughter Ellery, very young. We know Emily is his fiance. They were set to be married October 17th, less than a month from today, folks. Survived by 6 brothers, as well as 1 sister, 12 nieces and nephews, and his grandmother. All of them there today at the funeral to say their final goodbye. That funeral lasted about 2 hours, and his family had the courage to stand up and talk about Ryan. His sheriff stood up as well, and law enforcement from across the southeast, likely from across the country, showed up. They flew in to be there to pay their respects. The Greenville County Sheriff's Office had their chopper up, showing their respects to this young man. Just a little background on Deputy Hendrix. In case you didn't know much about him, he was born in Asheville. He was a Christian. He went to Grace Blue Ridge Church. His pastor spoke today about him and just how he served not only the county, but everyone he met. He graduated from Henderson Christian School in 2004. He enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, and he graduated as a Lance Corporal in 2005. He was a Marine Reserve for 5 years, volunteered to serve on tour of duty in Iraq in 2006. He began his career in the Henderson County Sheriff's Office, as many do, as a detention center officer. There's a lot of people that do that. So he was at the jail. And then in 2015, he completed his basic law enforcement training and became a road deputy and later a field training officer. As I mentioned, he was an active member in the SWAT team. You saw those folks there on that armored vehicle. He was assigned to the Charlie Squad, and he was a detective. And now you can see the casket making its way through Hendersonville right now on top of that fire truck there. His family close behind, along with his fellow colleagues. This now is heading down Main Street. That's what we're looking at in Hendersonville right now. They'll be turning on to Barnwell Street, and from there they'll go to Grove Street before getting on Highway 64. His final resting place will be Forest Lawn Cemetery. And traffic has stopped, as you can imagine. Folks paying their respects, many pulling over, getting out of their vehicles, many holding American flags. And there are law enforcement officers from every jurisdiction across not only North Carolina, but South Carolina as well. You can see the motorcade now making its way here. North Carolina Highway Patrol helping assist with that motorcade, along with the local sheriff's department's motorcade as well. And the thing is, a lot of these agencies work with each other. So it's not just the deputies here in Henderson County that lost a fellow brother, but it's also law enforcement agencies around the area and across the border in South Carolina. They work closely together on many calls, on many investigations. And as you can imagine, when one officer goes down, it affects so many because they know it could be any single one of them. And again, there is the SWAT vehicle. As I mentioned, only the elite in the sheriff's office and police join that. They have to be very strong mentally, physically, because when they see that vehicle go in, it's usually the ones we see to tear down a door to get inside for a suspect during negotiations. You see that when things are getting very intense. And those are the guys and gals that go in first. And they are leading that procession there. And once again, you see the Valley Hill Fire Department escorting the detective's body there.